Hi there. I am in a park in Redondo snuggling with this awesome humongous tree. Maybe when I'm done, if I have time, I'll take the camera and show you, because it's really just delicious, and I love climbing on gigantic trees, and it's really cradling and makes you remember what it felt like to be held like a baby by your mother when you were a baby. Yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway, so today what I want to talk to you about is getting through pain and shadow without spiritually bypassing. And this is something that's really hard for a lot of spiritual people, because if you're truly on any spiritual path, regardless of what method you use and regardless of what religion you ascribe to or spiritual practice, then your goal is to transcend your egoic stuff, of course. But what often happens with energy workers and with spiritual people, and I know this from lots of experience, is that when you come up with something difficult, you bypass it. And rather than saying, okay, I'm having this thing come up, it obviously is some piece of me that's trying to be opened and reintegrated, what you ordinarily do as a spiritual person is start to drown it out in affirmations and really just try to rip it out by the roots with energy work and things like that. And while it's not that that's bad, but it's only half of what needs to happen. And kind of like with grounding here in this world that we live in, you can't just stay up in your head all the time. You have to come down and bring it all down in your body. And the goal is not to go up and out of the physical. The goal is to bring total presence and consciousness and awesomeness to the physical. And so kind of like this pain and shadow stuff, I know for the past few weeks, I mean maybe 2 weeks or so, I thought it was just me, and then I ended up talking to people and found out that no, pretty much everyone is going through some crazy shite, like nuts. And without getting too personal with mine, I mean, I'm starting up a new website, and I'm going to be going nowadays by my first and middle name, because I don't know what's happening with my last name. And so that should tell you that that's some huge stuff. But on the other hand, it's hard, because as you do become more aware of the energy lines running between events and the fact that we do manifest and agree to everything that happens to us, and that you can never blame anyone for something that you manifested, because even if they do something that you wouldn't have liked, you still manifested the situation, and you manifested that version of them because that's the version you're orienting to, and the infinite versions of them that exist along their own evolutionary line and their own parallel reality thing. Anyway, so when you have situations like that, the first impulse is to run over it and to look down at it from above and analyze it and say, okay, this is what's happening on a psychological level or a spiritual level, and this is how I'm going to address it. Okay, and so now I'll feel a little bit and wrap it up in affirmations and energy work, and then as soon as it's dulled enough so I can look past it, I'll tuck it away and go. But what ends up happening is it doesn't actually get tucked away. It does get tucked away. It doesn't get shed. It goes down, and then it rears up again in an uglier way. So if you're, say, leaving situations because you don't like them, there's a thin line between standing up for what you know you deserve and what you know is in alignment with your true purpose, or running away from hard stuff. And if you're running away from hard stuff, then that means that you're just going to manifest the same thing in a different situation. And it's going to be harder next time, because it's going to have to work harder to get your attention, because you will have built up this scar tissue around it in your energy body and also in your brain. It's called the dissociative capsule, which is another subject. But anyway, so the thing to do, which is really hard, but there's a perk to it, and I'll tell you. The thing to do is to feel the emotion first before the thought. And what often happens is people feel the emotion and then feel the need to justify it with the thoughts, which then froths it up and makes it really a lot worse, because you have to put a thought to it and a justification to it that can end up demonizing a person or a situation, or making you really, really angry or really more hurt than you need to be, if you would just take the emotion and look at it as if, it were just something to feel and not something to wrap thoughts around and tangle them up in this thread of thought forms and chords. Anyway, so you feel this emotion, and then not only do you allow yourself to feel it, you really feel it, and you go into it. And in my experience, for instance, I've spent a lot of days in the past couple weeks laying around in bed, and I'm someone who separated my emotional body from my spiritual and mental bodies and kind of locked it in this little kennel over in the corner, so I would only allow my emotions out when they were good emotions, or if they were completely uncontrollable bad emotions. So in integrating that, what's ended up happening for me, and I think this might happen for a lot of you guys too, especially if you have difficult things you're going through, because like I said, just about everyone I've spoken to has some really tough stuff that they're going through right now. It's all coming, and I'll say why I think that's happening in a minute. But in any event, what ends up happening is there's a lot of emotion for a short period, and then it goes away. I mean, like 10 or 15 seconds, like tears and crying and heaving and shaky lungs, and then tired and gone, and then back up again later, and then gone. And sometimes I wish I could just turn it on like a faucet and just go ahead and drain the tank and then be done, but it doesn't really work like that, especially when your emotional muscles are atrophied because you haven't used them. And the perk to it is that even while I was going through all that stuff, and now I'm mostly on the other side of it, but I'm not confident enough to say that I'm totally done, and I don't think things like that big happen in just like a week and a half period. But what the funny thing is that as I'm going through it, and as I'm, you know, really upset and crying and venting to loved ones and just and angry, you know, there's also this piece of me that's saying, wow, this is really fun. I mean, feeling the emotion. And it seems counterintuitive, because when those emotions roll up on us, if you're someone like me who's really spiritual and not very emotional in the past, then you're like, whoa, and you run the other way. And you hide behind your intellect and your spiritual understanding of reality. And so you like peek out from behind this protective barrier. But if you remove the protective barrier and just like, okay, first it's terrifying when you actually remove the barrier. But then once the barrier is gone, it just washes over you, and actually it's kind of delicious. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to go out there and be heartbroken all the time. However, having had that emotional experience, that's part of why we're here. And bringing the presence into it and saying, okay, and I'm not gonna wrap a bunch of thoughts around this, I'm not gonna justify how I'm feeling, and I'm not gonna like need someone to agree with me or whatever, but just saying, this is how I feel, and I feel it, and I feel it, and I feel it, and I know I feel it, and I'm feeling myself feel it, and I'm watching myself feel it, and I feel it. That's how you do the same thing as grounding bliss, you know? That's how you bring your full presence to this human experience. And that's why we're here, and we're not going to ascend until we do it. So those of you who are like, emotion, if I were you, I would choose to do it, because if you don't and it has to hit you over the head with a baseball bat, then it's going to be harder. So when the opportunity arises, go ahead and choose it. And let's see what else I was going to say. There was something about why we're doing this. It's all parts of the dimensions coming together, and it's all things that we are wrapping up because of our karma is all like trying to come up to be totally healed, so we can go into this new place with no past karma. So it's definitely worth it, so worth it. And that's why if you can do it now, you don't have to keep going through the same stuff for 20 years, which a lot of people have had to do. And now it's time to wake up and say, well, no, we are spiritual beings. We are ascension gold. We are love and lighters. But also, that doesn't mean that we should cut ourselves out of an entire spectrum of experience when it arises. Doesn't mean you should go try to find being heartbroken or angry or, you know, whatever these things are, but when they show up, because there's already a pattern of that somewhere in your energy body, or else you would never experience in the first place. If you just run from it, that means you're kind of selling yourself out, and you're selling out your ascension, and you're selling out your evolution, and you're saying, no, I'm willing to work on this side of it, but that side of it, I'm going to leave those muscles totally atrophied in my energy body and not deal with it. So my recommendation to you would be to give yourself as much gentleness as you can, especially in this difficult time. Cry if you need to, yell if you need to, beat up a pillow, draw some angry stuff, you know, punch the air, and release it. And not bring it up and just have it around you, but go ahead and let it flow out. And then once it's out, you've cleared out all this beautiful space for integration and for healing. So the shadow is not a bad thing. It's not as delightful as the light, obviously, but there's a reason that it's there. It wants love too. It needs presence too. And not saying that I see you and that I'm going to engage with you as much as I engage with the pieces of myself that are easier for me to look at is not loving yourself. So keep that in mind. Good luck. We all need it, and we all have it. It's already here. It's fabulous. And you know, start to branch out. New things are happening nowadays, and so as we're all going through these difficult times, that also means that the awesome times are going to be even more awesome once we get over this hump. Oh, and that's the thing I was going to tell you. Why it's happening? It feels like we're in the middle of some transition that's going to take, I don't know how long, maybe a week or two, but before you set yourself down in the next place, you're kind of floating in the air and everything's discombobulated and weird. And I feel like we're in the floating in the air spot, and we're about to land in a new spot. And we've kind of started landing. I feel like, you know, when you put your foot down, we're like that far. And then we'll put the entire foot down in the next couple weeks or maybe month, and maybe a little bit longer, I'm not exactly sure, and then we'll be in this new amazing place. So keep that in mind. Go in peace, have a marvelous day, and hey, check this tree out. It's awesome. Let's see, here's where I am, and you see the awesome roots down there and the branches above, and someone's drawn a little face on that knothole, and it's just gigantic and beautiful, and I love it. And yay for trees. Anyway, I will see you soon.